Few things are more dangerous than ignoring a warning sent directly from heaven, especially when that rapture warning wasn't directed at the world, but at the church. Yes, you heard that right. The greatest prophetic sign of the end times was given to those who consider themselves saved, yet most of them simply missed it. And that's not just concerning, it's terrifying. The idea that this rapture alert was for the outsiders became a collective trap. Pastors, leaders, and churchgoers got comfortable in lukewarm faith, while the signs are screaming for urgency. But what few realized is that this message was delivered to the inner circle, to the disciples, to those who were supposedly ready. And that's where the greatest spiritual tragedy of our time lies. Hardly anyone noticed that the rapture warning carries a condition: to stay vigilant. It's not enough to say, "I'm a Christian." It's not enough to know the prophecies. The real criteria was never church attendance or a holy appearance, but oil in the lamp. And you know what's even more frightening? The church ignored it, even though it was written in red straight from Jesus' mouth. Today, you're going to discover why this rapture warning was overlooked, who the real targets of this call are, and what can still be done if you wake up now. So get ready, because what's about to be revealed might completely transform your spiritual walk. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, because this is the kind of message almost no one talks about, but everyone needs to hear. When Jesus spoke about the signs of the end, he wasn't in a public square or addressing unbelieving crowds. He was in private, speaking to his disciples, the close ones, the ones who already believed. That alone should shift the entire way we read those prophecies. It wasn't an evangelistic message, it was a warning to those already inside. The message is clear: the greatest danger lies within, not outside. It's strange how so many Christians read Jesus' warnings and immediately think of the sinners out there, as if the calls to vigilance, preparation, and repentance were only aimed at those living in the world. But what if those words were actually directed at the people sitting in church pews? The ones singing, serving, even preaching? Yes, that's where the danger no one talks about is hiding. The rapture, so eagerly anticipated by many, is indeed a promise. But it's also a filter, a test that won't separate those who say, "Lord, Lord," but those who actually live as watchful servants. A practical example: people who know every prophecy but can't forgive their brother, who attend every church campaign but refuse to give up their pride. The point isn't how much you know, it's how much you live. Modern church culture embraced the idea that judgment starts with the world, but the Bible clearly says it begins in the house of God. That changes everything, doesn't it? Imagine an alarm going off in your living room, and you assume it's for your neighbor's house. That kind of thinking kills urgency. And maybe that's why so many believe that just having faith is enough. But that leads us directly into the next point. Believing is essential, of course, but there's a sharp and often ignored difference between believing and watching, and many are spiritually asleep right on that fragile line. Believing can be passive, a mental agreement, a simple, "Yes, I believe." But watching demands posture. It requires you to let go of distractions, to resist the temptation of living like everyone else. It's a kind of faith with open eyes and bent knees. Some people say, "I believe, so I'm good," but they live as if they have all the time in the world, like the rapture is just another theory. Watching isn't about panic, it's about living with the awareness that the bridegroom could come at any moment. Like a soldier on night watch, he doesn't stop living, But he doesn't relax either, because he knows the danger or the call can come suddenly. That's the difference between hearing the word and living the word. Watching means refusing that series that contaminates your spirit. It means thinking twice before entering places that cool your soul. It's deciding to wake up a bit earlier to pray, even when you're tired. It's letting go of everyone else is doing it and asking instead, does this bring me closer to Christ or take me away? Watching isn't a one-time act, it's a lifestyle. Faith without watchfulness becomes comfort, and comfort kills urgency. The gospel has always called believers to an active, alert, surrendered life. That's why Jesus' warning wasn't just believe, but watch and pray. Because believing without watching can trap you in a comfort zone. And sometimes that zone is exactly where the enemy wants to keep you. But there's something even deeper that few are talking about. One of the greatest mistakes of the modern church was turning conditional promises into automatic guarantees. They took phrases like, if you watch, if you are ready, and conveniently cut out the first part. The if disappeared, and the gospel turned into a bundle of benefits without responsibility. But Jesus never promised reward without sacrifice. His blessings were always tied to obedience, consistency, and perseverance. Imagine someone buying a plane ticket but never going to the airport. They have the ticket, but never board. That's exactly how many people treat their faith. They hold the promise in hand, but never follow the instructions to prepare. Jesus' words weren't magic formulas. They were invitations to action. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself. Notice the if. Everything is conditional on the response. Today, many feel spiritually safe just because they attend church or know verses by heart. But they forget that heaven is a place of covenant, and covenant demands commitment. It's not enough to know Jesus is coming. You must be ready when he comes. The promise of the rapture isn't a gift card given to everyone, but an inheritance reserved for those who live as sons, not just hearers. When the word is watered down, it loses its weight and urgency. The gospel has become Sunday motivation instead of daily direction. It turned into instant comfort, but lost its power to confront. And in this environment of shallow teaching, many feel ready, not realizing they've ignored the very conditions Jesus himself laid out. And that leads us into an even more disturbing reality. There's something dangerously comforting about being surrounded by people who live just like you. The crowd creates a false sense of safety. If everyone's relaxed, it must be okay, right? Wrong. God's standard has never been the majority. It's always been the remnant. That's how it was with Noah, with Lot, with Gideon, and with the disciples. God has never needed numbers. He looks for the surrendered. It's incredibly easy to hide in a religious crowd. People singing the same songs, using the same phrases, attending the same services. But that doesn't mean they're spiritually awake. Sometimes they're all sleeping, just in sync. A crowd can be loud, but noise isn't a sign of watchfulness. It might just be the sound of distracted people walking in circles. How many times has someone thought about making a spiritual change, but gave up because no one else around is doing it? That's herd mentality, a kind of collective blindness. People begin to measure holiness by the group average, not by the word. But God has always called us to be light in the darkness, not shadows among other shadows. Standing out is often the clearest sign you're awake. The real issue is that the comfort of the crowd numbs personal vigilance. Instead of asking, how am I before God? People ask, how do I compare to others at church? But on that day, there won't be groups. It'll be one-on-one, face-to-face. And then many will realize that though they were surrounded by believers, they were alone in their watchfulness. But this kind of slumber has an even deeper root. The greatest spiritual danger isn't always blatant sin. Often, it's the subtle sleep that creeps in unnoticed. It's that religious routine that looks devout, but doesn't move God's heart. Polished services, perfect worship teams, packed calendars, but no true brokenness. This kind of sleep doesn't make you leave church. It just makes your heart clock out. And before you know it, you're running on autopilot. Jesus spoke of coming like a thief in the night, not because he's sneaky, but because many will be spiritually asleep. The parables and prophetic warnings are clear. All had lamps, but only some had oil. And oil symbolizes intimacy, presence, continuous watchfulness. In other words, you can be in church and still be asleep. You can look ready and not be. This spiritual sleep has very recognizable symptoms: robotic prayers, reading the Bible out of duty, worship without passion. The person might even cry during sermons, but change nothing. They weep in the service, but ignore God's voice in secret. The heart grows used to the movement and forgets the essence. It's like a phone on airplane mode, nice on the outside, but disconnected inside. And perhaps the scariest part? Many don't even realize they're asleep because they're surrounded by others who are sleeping too. And since no one wakes up, no one sounds the alarm. But the prophetic clock is ticking, and when the bridegroom calls, only those with oil will be able to hear. Only the awakened will respond. Which brings us to an even more dangerous deception: thinking you're already ready. Perhaps one of the greatest spiritual dangers today is the comfortable feeling of, "I'm ready." But feelings are not the measuring stick. Fruits are. The Word never taught us to measure readiness by the emotions of a worship service, but by the transformation of our daily life. It's easy to get goosebumps during worship. It's hard to forgive someone who hurt you. True readiness isn't seen on Sundays. It's revealed on Mondays. There's a generation confusing religious routine with holiness. People think they're standing firm just because they follow a Christian schedule. They read devotionals, post Bible verses, serve in ministries, but they live on autopilot. Jesus won't recognize those who simply showed up. He will recognize those who truly knew him, and that knowing isn't academic. It's intimate, relational, and constant. That's why many will hear the harshest words in the gospel: "I never knew you." Not because they never went to church, but because they never lived the gospel for real. They never allowed Christ to rule every part of their lives. They acted like believers, but never stopped being the Lord of their own decisions. And that's terrifying, because self-deception makes you feel safe when you're actually far. True watchfulness is born from a humble awareness. I haven't arrived, but I press on. Those who think they're ready stop growing, stop praying deeply, stop examining their heart. And at that point, deception has already taken root. But heaven is prepared to receive the watchful, not the complacent. Time is shorter than we think, and the warning has already been given. The real question is, who's actually listening? The warning was clear, but not for those outside. It was for those who thought they were already safe. Jesus wasn't rebuking the lost. He was trying to awaken those asleep inside their own faith. The greatest spiritual illusion of our generation is thinking that being close to the things of God means being ready to meet Him. But the rapture won't surprise those who have oil. It will confirm them. Now tell me, are you truly watchful or just present? Does your faith bear fruit, or just take shape? Are you following